Hello, ladies and germs, or germs and more germs. I'm back, finally. I was kind of delayed for a while making more videos because of technical difficulties that I won't bore you with in this video, but I am back and trying to upload on my regular schedule. But anyways, this is going to be a first episode in a long line of videos, hopefully, of something I like to call book review. So I'm going to be sharing with you what I, as a mythology enthusiast, enjoyed very much. And I know I'm a little late to the party with this particular series, but I figured since I, as a mythology nerd, enjoyed it so much, and since it came out quite a while ago, I believe, around 2009 area, most people have probably heard of it, but I never heard of it until now, so that means that there's probably other people. So I would just like to give my thoughts as a mythology nerd, and also my recommendation, because I know that anybody that enjoys the study of mythology will enjoy this book series, because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was very well done for the layout of the way Greek mythology is. But yeah, let's just jump into it. As you see, I got volumes 1 through 6 right here. I'm not sure if there's more after this, which I think there is, I remember seeing. But for now, I only own volumes 1 through 6, which is Zeus, Athena, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, Aphrodite, which is a really good start. They're pretty much some of your most important roles in the entire mythology. But I will cover all of these, review every single one of them, because I enjoyed every single one of them, probably pretty much equally. I think I have a favorite, but I won't reveal that until I review it. But hopefully after I review these, I can order the newer ones and review those as well. But yeah, today we are going to start off with the big man himself. Okay. Zeus. As you can see, this is really nice. It's got, I got a crappy camera so you can't really see it, but how cool it actually is. But this is the first volume. As you see, it's very impressive with the lightning moving on it. Now, if you've ever studied mythology, I know what you're thinking. Zeus. Die. Where is he? That's right, the false god of thunder. We all know who the real god of thunder is. The book itself actually doesn't focus too much on him. I mean, it revolves around him type of a thing, but it actually is basically the book of the War of the Titanomachy. And that is what I love about it, is because it covers things in here that it makes sense out of things that are otherwise just absolutely ridiculous in Greek mythology. And that'll probably be most what this review is about, is just my praise towards the thing of how this book and the entire volume, all the volumes handled certain things and just really made it more cool. And it's impressive taking ridiculous things like that and turning them into some of the coolest parts of the story. My first point to comment on within the book is the Titans. Most stories or things that you see make the Titans either these weird shaped size things, or they're like these giant ugly fleshy things, or they're like too elemental. But this book handles it really very well. It really delves into the aspect of them being like cosmic powerful beings. Like, they're not these giant fleshy ugly giants. They're like have hair made of clouds, storm clouds and stuff. They're like these giant, I mean, they look like flesh, but they're like these giant made out of stone things, but they're not like overly rocky type of a thing. And I really appreciated that, because I've never seen anybody put a spin on the Titans that actually thinks, yeah, that's right. What I want to comment on is the Greek creation story. And I used to think that was so cool because I knew the name of that. and I don't remember it at all now because I've had my head in Norse mythology for too long, which really sucks because I would sound all cool talking in this video like I actually know what I'm talking about. But yeah, the Greek creation story is, the book doesn't start off with Zeus. It starts off with Gaia and Uranus and birth of the Titans and so on and so forth. And the conclusion to that, where Kronos overthrows Uranus, is really it's cool how they took something that's historically just ridiculous and made it something that just sounds bad, like good bad type of thing. Like Kronos doesn't do like he does in mythology, where he just cuts off Uranus's balls and throws them in the ocean, and that whole weird Aphrodite thing happens. No, this is much cooler. You want to forget about that version after this. They take and Gaia crafts this sickle, adamantine sickle, and it's like shaped like a moon crescent. And Kronos grabs it from the sky, and he slices open the sky with it. And the essence of Uranus, which is the sky that is made of, falls, rains down onto the earth, and all kinds of things, and like Aphrodite and such came from his essence that poured out in the sky onto the earth. So that is way cooler than just some giant having his balls chopped off. I think anybody can agree on that. After all that happens, we move on to the part where Kronos starts having children, and we all know that's where things start to get ugly in Greek mythology. He starts devouring his children and stuff, but one point I want to add on that makes it way cooler than just some giant devouring things, is Kronos is the Greek word for time, at least at the extent of my knowledge, and Kronos could be seen almost as like a time deity, and I think he is, as a matter of fact. I'm just not for sure, so I don't want to say it, but this book sort of alludes to that, because when he opens his mouth, it's like a realm within his mouth. It's like another universe. It's not like some just giant devouring his children. It's like, and my theory is, if he is a time deity, that when he devours his children, that they are cast into a drift of time and trapped there. And this is sort of alluded to in the fact that it's that the Poseidon, in his story, he talks about the dream state. He basically lived another life while he was inside of Kronos, in like a dream state. So my theory is that if Kronos being a time deity, and if he consumes them and casts them adrift within the waves of time, that their dream state that they were inside of Kronos was an alternate timeline where they were cast to that, and they were no longer a threat to Kronos as a result. And that really makes more sense, and it makes sense how they came out mature, because they didn't just, if you think about it naturally, if they were just in Kronos' organic stomach all that time, they wouldn't come out mature. They'd be animals. They don't know how to talk, how to do this and that, and such. So the dream state thing and the living in an alternate timeline as such of being devoured by Kronos makes a whole lot of more sense. And Hestia is really interesting, because she comes out because she was the first one to be devoured by Kronos. She comes out and she's a flame, because being digested by Kronos for too long. So I think that the whole thing of Kronos, being devoured by Kronos, is the symbolism of being cast into the waves of time. The digestion is the very fabric being torn away by the waves of time. They start to cease to exist because of it. And Hestia's godly essence started to transform, its deterioration flared and became a flame sort of thing, if that makes sense. I don't know, I just found it really interesting. It's probably the most interesting part of the book, in my opinion. And the next part that George O'Connor switched up, which I really appreciate too, that because it just makes more sense, is the fact of how Hades and Poseidon and Hestia and Demeter and Hera and stuff was brought back from the depths of Kronos. It wasn't like regular mythology where Zeus just simply sliced open his belly and they came out. This is less grotesque. I mean, it's still kind of gross in a way, but it's again, it's something that makes a lot more sense. And it just shows George O'Connor knew exactly what he was doing, because he took this and interpreted it he took the whole series and interpreted it into something that makes more sense and is more cool as a result. So after we get past the part of the book where Zeus has been raised by the nymphs, and him and Metis plan their attack on Kronos to rid him of his power, so to speak, they go to execute it, and how they execute it is Gaia has this vengeance towards Kronos because he kept the Cyclops and the Hecatonchires imprisoned. So she grew this plant specifically in the cave Zeus was raised in. And Zeus took that plant and they were going to offer it to Kronos. And anyways, Kronos, being a powerful time being, saw right through Zeus's shape-shifting disguise and got all pissed and stuff. But he ends up eating the plant. And this plant, what causes him to regurgitate the children he had swallowed. And personally, this makes a lot more sense and is a lot better. And it was probably just a attempt to, I don't know if it is, but it seems like it might be, considering a lot of kids would read this, an attempt to get rid of some of the brutality of having stomachs sliced open. But honestly, other than maybe the fact of getting rid of the brutality, I think it just makes a lot more sense, because if the plant may have the ability to alter Kronos' genetic makeup to force him to pool with his power the children he had cast into time by devouring. But that's just my take on it. I thought it was interesting. So Zeus and his siblings band together and they flee from the Titans, who are now enraged and start an all-out war. And one thing that I appreciated in this part is the fact that when they went to war, the Titans were ripping up huge parts of the earth and were, it says, new oceans were gouged. So explanation for the continent breakup of Pangaea. So the gods and the Titans are at war, and it's really not going anywhere. They just fight and fight and fight, and the Earth is being destroyed. But then, and we get to this place where we find Zeus just exhausted. He doesn't know what to do. He's got all this stuff on his back, and all of a sudden, Gaia, Mother Earth, reaches out to him. She tells him about his birthright that's been hidden down in the depths of Tartarus with the Cyclops and the Hecatonchires. So Zeus ventures down into Tartarus and fights the giant dragon Kempe along the way, annihilates him in a rather humorous way that I won't explain right now. But he gets to the Cyclops and the Hecatonchires, and one thing I appreciated about this is, as you may know, in mythology, the Cyclops are responsible for forging the Triton of Poseidon, the dark helmet of Hades, and the thunderbolt of Zeus. But instead of just like forging the thunderbolt of Zeus, they more like retain Zeus's lightning power within him. And I think that was a really cool aspect, instead of just forging like a master bolt type of a thing, like a lot of other things would describe, is they've just held the power within them and forged it in the way of imbuing it to him type of a thing. I thought that was a really cool aspect. So Zeus emerges from Tartarus and he brings the gifts from the Cyclops, the Triton and the Helmet of Darkness, to Hades and Poseidon. And he challenges the Titans, who are about to make their last stand, their final strike on the gods. They captured Metis and everything, so they pretty much had the upper hand as far as they knew. But Zeus confronts them, and they seem pretty confident. Atlas tries to kill him, but Zeus blasts bugs the crap out of him. And then, to the Titan's surprise, he brought the Cyclops and the Hecatonchires with him. And I think that's a really cool aspect because I've never seen a version where the Cyclops and the Hecatonchires were actually involved in the war. Now, there very well may be lots of versions that depict that, but I've never seen it before, and I thought it was a very cool addition and a reasonable addition as well. I mean, the Cyclops were on the god's side, so why wouldn't they join the battle? And the Hecatonchires were depicted very good as well. They were just like these giants, and they didn't really have like a single head and were just covered with eyes everywhere. They were like this. It kind of reminded you like something off of Monsters Inc. type of thing. It's a monster I saw in there, I don't know the name. But it was kind of like a square type head type thing with his eyes everywhere and all these arms. But it's kind of hard to describe. But what I like most about the Hecatonchires is the way they utilize the fighting style of the Hecatonchires, because there's not really much ways to imagine how a giant with just hands and hands and hands and hands type of thing can fight. So what happened is he used all of his arms and hands to just tear up the earth and start tossing rocks at the Titans. I thought it was a very clever way and a more natural approach to the Hecatonchires' physiology, instead of just making them like a grappler sort of thing, which I imagine they are, but just as more of a natural approach to their body type of thing. So at this point, the gods are basically winning the war against the Titans. They got with the help of the Cyclops and Hecatonchires. And we get to the point where Zeus is facing off with Kronos, and it's epic. I mean, Kronos is just slicing through mountains with the same sickle, which is now attached to his staff instead of just holding it like this. With the same sickle that he used to kill Uranus. It's just slicing through the mountains like butter, and they're just blowing up like volcanoes. Zeus is blasting lightning everywhere. It's just awesome. But for a moment, it looks like Kronos has the upper hand because he gets a good hit in on Zeus, and Zeus looks down and out for the count. So, and one thing I really appreciate is Poseidon comes in and he strikes the ground and causes an earthquake. It rips the ground open, which is I'm assuming is the entryway which they banished Kronos to Tartarus with at the end of the battle. But what I appreciated about that part is the fact that not a lot of people acknowledge the fact that Poseidon is not only the god of the sea, but is the god of earthquakes as well. So I thought that was a cool addition to the whole thing. Zeus then regains his power and fights Kronos some more, and they come into one major clash, and it's all of Kronos' power in one swing with the sickle, and Zeus is just coming in with all of his power. Zeus lands on the sickle, and he just unleashes all of his power into it and destroys it, which says a lot because it was made out of adamantine, which according to this series sort of alludes to like an Uru or vibranium equivalent type metal, which may be more powerful. I don't know. I haven't seen anything that alludes to how powerful it is compared to like Uru type of thing. But it sliced open the sky and killed Uranus as far as I know, which says a lot. So anyways, Kronos is pretty depressed about the fact of losing his sickle. He's pretty much down and out for the count at Zeus's mercy. Can't do anything really, no more powerful than the other Titans. But this is really where it gets interesting, because at the beginning, after Kronos took the throne from Uranus, it's kind of zoomed up on his face because he decided to not let go of the Cyclops and the Hecatonchires. It said, but he had too much of his father, and Uranus was tyrannical, Kronos became tyrannical, and as Zeus is about to finish off Kronos, it zooms in on his eyes and it says, and he has kind of stars in his eyes, kind of like Kronos has through most of the book. It says, but he had too much of his father in him. So it's sort of a foreshadow sort of thing, showing Zeus's nature, foreshadowing Zeus's nature throughout the rest of mythology, and kind of just getting a depiction of his whole bloodline, and how it's like father against son, the pattern of tyranny, so on and so forth. It's a really clever addition. It's kind of it's the part of the book that has a deeper um, foreshadow than pretty much the rest of it, as far as I'm concerned. So Zeus casts Kronos in Tartarus, and everything moves on. And Atlas is punished by carrying the weight of the sky on his shoulders, and all the gods get their assigned duties, and so on and so forth. But what really carries on the conflict into the future is the fact that Gaia is pissed at Zeus because he casts all the Titans except for the Titanesses into Tartarus, and Gaia has this reinforced message throughout the books that she loves all of her children, and that was the whole point of getting Zeus to overthrow Kronos and Kronos to overthrow Uranus, is to make sure that none of her kids were in Tartarus. And the reason she's pissed is because instead of getting rid of Kronos' tyranny with keeping her children in Tartarus, she instead created another Kronos with Zeus. So yeah, that's she's reasonably pissed. But then again, it is the Titans we're talking about here. The Hecatoncheires decided to stay in Tartarus as the jailers of the Titans, and Zeus made his the home of the gods on Mount Olympus. And they lived not so happily ever after from there ever forth. And the book ends with sort of a picture of a similar picture to the poster of the entire series. And as you can see, I enjoyed the series so much that I have a poster of it in my office. And I know I am far behind the times with this book series. It came out quite a while ago, and most people that are the majority of people that are into Greek mythology have probably read these, and but this review is for people like me who are deep in the mythology and haven't discovered the series until the last 2 years. And I don't want to hear, "Oh, you're doing a review on those? Those came out all that time ago. What have you been doing, living under a rock?" Actually, I suffered from amnesia, you insensitive Quiznik. No, I'm just kidding. I totally live under a rock. Despite it being Zeus, I really enjoyed this book, and I really enjoyed all of them because I read all of them in one day. I read it all 6 volumes in one day when I first got it, and it's really an excellent book. I wish George O'Connor would do, and maybe he has, and I would be ecstatic to find out because I enjoyed this so much. I wish he would do his take on Norse mythology and Egyptian mythology and so on and so forth, because that would be really interesting to see what he can do with some of the things in there. The book, he handled these very well. He obviously knew exactly what he was doing. Very creative in the fact of how he handled certain things about Greek mythology that makes people say, well, why am I reading this type of a thing? As I will say again and again and again, this is a really good and creative book series, and props to George O'Connor. And I'll say this at the end of every video I do reviewing this work, because I haven't come across any of his work that I haven't enjoyed. If you are into mythology and you are interested in seeing a version of mythology that is just pure in its coolness factor and its depictions and is fairly well accurate and sort of just flows better and doesn't behold the inaccuracies that most people and plot holes that most people put into their work with Greek mythology, then this is for you. I would highly recommend this. It's probably one of my favorite book series that I have, and I'll probably read it over and over again. In fact, I'm probably going to read it this week just so I can refresh my memory for these reviews. And he presents the gods and stuff as characters really well. By characters, I mean not just the big bad gods type of thing that are like over the whole thing. He does a very good job of expressing them as actual characters. And he puts more depth into the characters of them than any movie or anything I've ever seen. The only thing that could probably put more depth in them is Percy Jackson and stuff, but I haven't read those books yet. I know crucified. And I don't want to hear,
Hey, you never read Percy Jackson? You call yourself a mythology nerd?
I'll read it, okay? Just give me some time. Well, that'll be it for this review, my friends. This has been Savage Thunder's thoughts on Zeus, King of the Gods. And with that, I give you my praise of this book and also my recommendation. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to hit the like and subscribe and share. Savage out.